My dream for ITG is to become a multinational IT consulting firm, delivering value to its customers through the use of emerging technologies.
The reality is we live in a world that is very dynamic, that's very demanding, and what we need to provide is ways for our customers to be able to adapt to these changes, to be able to provide better services. And that was the whole trigger of doing what we do.
The dream for ITG is to become a regional company. And that region is the Southeast Asian region.
So for ITG Malaysia, we're expecting to grow our team bigger. So we are expecting to venture together with all the regions and with our client as well. So we grow with our client and we co-create together.
Singapore being a multi-racial country, we have Indians, we have Malay, we have Chinese, we have Caucasian. I have a big responsibility to help ITG Singapore to grow bigger, and I hope to ensure that the task given to me to help ITG Group to grow even bigger.
Indonesia is the largest country in ASEAN and one of the fastest growing economy. That is why having the right technology to help Indonesia to leap forward is essential. We wanted to contribute and participate in positive impacts in Indonesia's growth and future.
At the heart of ITG's business are its customers.
And when we talk about people, it's the customers of our customers. And it's really up to us to be able to provide them with the right solutions and the right services so that they can help people. So at the end of the day, the heart of what we do is impacting the lives of people.
Venture Together is a call for the employees to work with the intention of co-creating solutions.
We live in a very interconnected world, and it's not anymore that you're the client and I'm the service provider. You have your role and I have mine, and we'll stick to that.
By adding together, it emphasized that the journey is not a separate attempt, but it is to get everyone on board and co-create value.
It's only with working together, venturing together, can we really achieve what we set out to achieve.
To work alongside together so that its employees, its top management, its customers would be able to maximize the use of technology and support their growth.
Venture together.
一起前进.
Mari kita.
Let's venture together.
Let's venture together.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to have you all here. We welcome you to our webinar, Completing Your DevSecOps Journey, Automating IT Operations in the Next Normal, hosted by yours truly, IT Group, together with Red Hat and GitLab. Before we start, I would like to share some guidelines for a seamless webinar experience. Next slide, please. May we request everyone to mute your mics to ensure that there will be no interruptions during the webinar session. Please change your Zoom name into your full name or real name for attendance checking purposes. Feel free to ask relevant questions addressed to any of our speakers. Your feedback is valuable to us. Please answer the survey form that will be flashed during the webinar. Also, there is a QR code in your screens that you can scan, which will lead you to a 2 to 3 minute survey. Answer the survey and you will get a free token from us. Next slide. For today's webinar, we will be getting insights from our speakers as they talk about simplify infrastructure management and automation with Red Hat and GitOps with GitLab. To formally welcome us, I would like to introduce Mr. Andre Kusuma, the Managing Director of PT IT Group Indonesia. Andre leads a team of technology consultants and trusted commercial advisors by helping companies to improve their business operations by providing cost-effective solutions. May I call on Andre?
Good morning.
Thank you for attending the sessions. This is one of our series that we have run, and we will be running future series related to infrastructures, DevOps, and databases. First of all, I hope you guys are all safe from the pandemics. I know it's affecting us all, uh, and that's also why we are uh, adapting to this virtual events. I believe everybody is also adapting to this kind of virtual events, even with the schools, works, um, and would like to give a shout out to the medical frontliners that they're working really hard to keep us all in safe and to treat all those who are affected with the virus. Uh, they're really the heroes here, and like always, we are all we're all the heroes too, because we need to keep on trying to follow the protocols to keep ourselves safe and our loved ones safe. Um, Maybe for those of you who are, this is a regional events that we have for Indonesia, Philippines. Um, in Philippines, I was noticed that there were some maintenance happening on the three major ISP, Globe, PLDT, and Sky. Hopefully everything is well. Uh, well, internet nowadays is no longer it's already a utility that we need to have in daily life, especially with the situation nowadays. Um, so one of the interesting thing about this event is that we knew that for all of you who have been in IT industry, to help your company to run the IT on the server side, on the backend side, on the infrastructure side, you guys knew that we've been running machines, servers, networks, devices, and such for the longest time we can remember. And it was, we have to maintain configurations, we have to do maintenance operations here and there. Then suddenly, a couple years back, there was some new movement that infrastructure might be evolving. But how IT are. That's how IT is actually always be interesting, because things are evolving. So the next evolution would be the cloud native. They come Kubernetes, they come containerization, they come Dockers, and it's still on evolution, and I don't think it will ever stop. So part of why we session is that we need to also understand, and we need to know how we can help uh, people to run their digital transformation, how they can modernize their infrastructure. Of course, you can have a greenfield deployment for new modern infrastructures, cloud native. You can deploy new systems, but you also have an existing environment and existing infrastructures. What usually we call some of us call it legacy infrastructure. I I would like to say it as a classical infrastructure. It's not yet legacy, because there will be the right tools for the right problems. Some tools might solve a couple of problems, but it might not solve most of the problems. So it might be still running side by side. But the thing here is that how can we, if we're running or we're maintaining those systems, how can we uh, adopt? How can we backport? how can we make ourselves make our life easier by putting automation, for example, how we can make use of the newfound tools or the new methodology to make ourselves to make our life easier. So that's part of why we're actually running this session. What we wanted to share is that how we can automate most things, how we can put we can make the system or the servers to uh, to run their jobs, so it can be automated. We can have the team can have more time. They can do they can reduce the routines. They can delegate the routines to the machines, and they will actually have more time to do more productive things instead of just routines. So that is part of why we have these sessions. Uh, Happy to say that we have our partners here, Red Hat, that ITG has been partnering with them for the longest time. We can remember, I think we've been partnering with them since 2008. So it was back then the RHEL Enterprise Linux was one of the major uh, operating system that is being deployed in terms of enterprise Linux. I remember that a lot of customers here in Indonesia were migrating, were trying to evolve from the other server operating systems. It was a big movement here in Indonesia, and also in Philippines. It was also a very strategic move for the customers. Then Red Hat brings a lot of other things, virtualization. Before that it was a high availability, then virtualizations. Then nowadays it will be the OpenShift containerizations. Don't forget that Red Hat also have their satellites and Ansible for automating the classical infrastructure. And we also have, and from Red Hat, Jafar is here to represent Red Hat. Then aside from that, we also have from GitLab, uh, Rob. GitLab is one of our newfound partner that we love to bring to our customers, because we saw and we knew GitLab will bring a lot of value to our customers here, regionally, Indonesia, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia. GitLab has been a very popular SCM, and they are evolving to a lot more than just SCM. They're also one of the company that I've always take a peek as for how to do remote working, especially since the pandemic working. Their company was the first company that I were uh, looking for reference for remote working, because they've been born in the cloud. They have a cloud product. They were born in the cloud. They are used to remote working. But I think Rob can tell you more on GitLab. Okay, without further ado, let us thank you very much again. Thank you again for attending these sessions. Let me introduce you to Jafar.
Okay. Thank you, Andre, for that welcoming remarks. Our next speaker has a breadth of knowledge in private, public, and multi-cloud solutions, working with enterprise, public sector, and mid-market across multiple industries in Southeast Asia and India. With his 28 years of IT industry experience and his consulting background managing sales, operations, and building partner ecosystems, he is engaged in driving customers towards their digital transformation journey and running applications on hybrid cloud virtualization, the containerized environment, which is more agile, scalable, secure, and easily manageable. Currently, he is with Red Hat Asia Pacific as Cloud Platform Solutions Director and based out of Bangkok, Thailand, covering emerging countries in Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. Let us all welcome Jafar Ali Kha, Red Hat's Asia Pacific Platform Solutions Director.
Good morning everyone. Welcome again and thank you for joining this webinar session. It's really my honor to be here as a speaker. Hope things are well with you and your family during this challenges time that we are facing in our lifetime. Hope all well, goes well. Besides that, okay, today I'll be spending around 25 minutes to talk about, we are currently living in a world where things are rapidly changing in a very, very short time, right? Especially if you see in the technology world, especially in IT, things have been radically been changing, new applications, new solutions, new way of managing the IT and infrastructure is being introduced on a monthly basis. So this is good, but at the same time, it also adds some complexities to the way that we have been engaged, or we have been trained, or we have been educated to run our IT infrastructure. So today, let me spend a few minutes to explain how we could use some of the solutions or tools available with Red Hat to simplify in a way that you can manage that infrastructure. So for that, let me roll back a bit, like 15 or maybe 20 years back, where things used to be simple, right? We didn't have much bigger footprint of hardware. And even if we had that footprint, not much changes took place very often.
Sorry, I think your screen is not shared yet.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry. Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
I thought I was, oh, okay. How about now? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, good. Yeah, sorry about that. I was, apologies for that. So yeah, this was my introduction and yeah. So let me roll back to where I started, roll back to the things where it used to be simple, right? We used to manage things like very simpler way, and things were done more in a manually, right? Like you used to have Excel sheets to manage the server inventory and also to make a checklist of what has been carried out on a daily basis. And again, teams were really focused on what they are supposed to deliver. For example, if I'm a network administrator, my responsibility would have been just to manage the network environment and make sure that it functions well. If anything goes wrong with the server or storage, I will reach out to my fellow and then talk to him. So because he becomes an expert on that, he will be able to share his thoughts on that issue that we have been facing in the data center. But as the time goes by, I mean, currently, things have changed. You see on the left-hand side, things are then, and compared on the right-hand side, there are changes, the changes which are happening in our current data center is I mean, it's not static, it's dynamic, because we are introducing new applications, we are introducing new level of hardware or operating systems, or even these days we are focusing how we could extend on-premises to the public cloud or make a hybrid cloud. So a lot of things are happening, and at the same time, automation has been introduced. However, if you see in this diagram here, there are a lot of areas that needed in order to manage a data center or IT environment. Maybe it starts from provisioning a user, or provisioning an a hardware or operating system. and then the needed components. And then we need to have a day-to-day operations we need to carry out in order to keep that environment up and running, maintaining the SLA, right? By maybe applying the patches, where at the same time the network admin ensures that the connectivity is there at any given time to support the business. And we also do some performance management. And also, not only that, we have a governance and security team where they do their day-to-day checklist. But the problem, if you see here, is it's more kind of it's more kind of a silo, right? We might have, I mean, I know many of our customers are using Ansible, which is a community version to start with. And some of our customers are, like you, may be having scripts, like a simple script, a text file or INI, where you have to execute of your day-to-day operations. But again, these all activities are done in a silo manner, which might automate functions. But here today we are to discuss how can we make the automation to be the first approach in your organization, which will reduce complexity, which will reduce the cost of managing your IT or data center, and also keep the efficiency, and also make things faster if any failure to happen or if any management to be carried out across your infrastructure. So for that, let's see what would be that single strategy to follow as a best practices. As we have different team members here on the left, and then their objective is to actually operate. An objective here to operate, whether it be a physical or it be a virtualized or on the hybrid cloud, and supporting the different applications where they have to support the business, right? And that's where we spoke to some of our customers to take their opinion on how do they think about automation. And this is the feedback that we got from our customers. And as you can see, different personas have different needs, and they have different challenges, and they need a different outcome to be carried out on their job, right? But if you see here, similarity is everybody is seeing the need of the automation in their roles, which they need to support their business. So let's take automation, like what is automation, right? How it can be introduced. When we talk about the operations in an IT, it doesn't mean only operating an infrastructure, a server, running the patches or configurations or provisioning. That operations these days can be extended from to the left, which is more to your application development as well. So how we could ensure that a development happens and it can go to the deployment stage in a fast manner, and at the same time, how we could reduce any security loopholes, or how can the finished product be released with less bugs that as much as possible. So that's where if we introduce some mechanisms in the process of development till the build, test, and deploy, we would be able to achieve that time frame with a high quality of finished product. And that can also be applicable to the infrastructure, like managing the server or keeping the patches for the applications or updates, and also ensuring the security and compliance have been met on a regularly and consistently manner, which could be done repeatedly using IAC, like infrastructure as a code, which can be embedded into the application, or which can be pulled into any infrastructure or any appliances that we need in order to maintain that happening. And finally, operations is the team who really have to put themselves on a day-to-day, on a minute or hourly manner to ensure all this infrastructure is seen as a holistic view, and then in a holistic view, in order to identify and remediate those actions needed in a controlled manner. So that's where today we are here to talk more about this automation and management tools. Today our main focus, I would be focusing on Red Hat Ansible, but however, I would be spending some time to also explain what are the other built-in components that we have with our enterprise Linux, which is very handy. And also on top of it, how with our Red Light Satellite, you would be able to build a more secure and trusted environment, right? Rather it be on the bare metal or in a virtualized or in a hybrid cloud environment. So with that, let me deep dive into our automation tool. So when we talk about automation, the people think that, okay, it might be a complex tools, which I need to understand the step of each and every process where I am involved. So maybe as a developer, he might be not very familiar with security processes, whereas he may not be very familiar with the infrastructure provisioning. However, how can we make sure that the IT infrastructure person would be able to create a script which is related to infrastructure, and at the same time, the developer would be able to contribute to that script, or we call it as a playbook. I will show you in a minute. How can they add their portions into the single playbook, which will allow the teams to combinedly work together to execute the needed actions in a timely manner. So that's what we'll be talking today. So when I say the common language is this playbook, and then that playbook needs to be, so we are creating the playbook here. We are creating the script. We are creating the flow, but we need a mechanism to scale it, to control it, and also to manage it. That's where this tower comes into place, which can deliver from provisioning, or even the configuration management drift, or even applications that needs to be deployed on premises or on the cloud. And at the same time, we ensure that the security and compliances are orchestrated in a given fashionly manner across these environments. Or for example, if you want to spun a container, a Kubernetes container on premises, and also you need to expand up in the cloud based on your parameters. If any dev guy have to build a container, in order to save the cost, you want to build it out on the public cloud. These are the things that you can embed in the playbook, and that can be automated based on the needs. So what is Ansible? What is Red Hat Ansible? So it's in a simple, humanly readable script. I mean, I would say like not a script, actually I would say YAML language. It's written in YAML, which allows you to write a script without even having special programming skills. I will show some examples how easy it is to write it. And then those scripts can be executed in an order manner. For example, before you apply a patch, if you want the operating system to stop some services, then you would be able to embed that in that steps, so that some service will be stopped before you apply a patch. And once the patch has been applied, it checks the status and then brings the service back up started, right? And it's not only, it doesn't place only for a configuration management or patch management. Actually, this would be able to apply in your CI/CD process to deploy an application, deploy a package, and also you can have a workflow orchestrated. Maybe it would be a network appliances or even IoT devices on the cloud. And the good thing is this is an agentless architecture, which means there is no hassle of installing any file on the endpoints. So we are not making any changes to the way that the environment has been functioning. And you will be able to log in or enter into those endpoints using the Open SSH, or for the Windows system, you can using the Windows Remote Management to manage it, right? I will go through in details to show you here. So this is how it's split. So we use Engine to create the script, to create the playbook by using the universal language of automation, which is written in YAML, YAML. And then once you have it, you need to scale it, right? So how I'm going to scale it? That's where the tower comes into place to scale across more than one data center, or maybe even across the data center, or maybe across the public or private cloud, hybrid cloud environment. You want to extend that functions to be added. So that's how it's layered, stacked up from Engine to tower to then the hosted services. I'll spend a few minutes about the architecture, what is inside and how it works. So the engine, which is an Ansible engine, it actually starts with the inventory. What it does is it has to go and collect the information of the nodes or the hosts or the endpoints that it has to talk to, right? It has to talk to or execute the scripts or commands that we will be embedding in the playbook. So that inventory can be pulled from different manners. It can be pulled from your own CMDB or from the resources that you might have on your private or public cloud. And then we will be integrating, so we'll be writing a script which can be integrated using the modules from that particular different vendor. For example, if you're planning to talk to a, let's say a firewall or load balancer of F5 and a Cisco, so you can go and integrate the modules which are developed by those vendors in order to manage those appliances. And in order to control those devices or hosts, you can use CLI or you can use SSH to execute that, right? And when I say the host, like I said, it can be on bare metal to a network device, to a load balancer, to services which are sitting on the public cloud. For example, you would be able to spin a VPC, a virtual private network, on the public cloud using that playbook. Okay. So now in a bigger picture, this is a busy slide. Sorry about that. Because of the, just wanted to cover in one place. So this is the Ansible, this is the engine that we were discussing. So this is the, let me find the pointer. Okay, this is the engine that we discussed about, right? Okay, this is the engine that we discussed about, which has the plugins and the library that it can interact with. Now, we use the Ansible tower to manage it, to scale it, to control it, which means you have with the simple user interface, you as an admin, as an Ansible admin or infrastructure admin, you will be able to provide the control to who would be able to write a playbook, who will be able to make changes to the playbook, who will be able to delete or create it, or who will be able to just execute it. So it has a built-in RBAC capabilities so that you have better control, because these are powerful tools. It can do a lot of actions in your changes in your environment. So having a control over this access is really important. With that, you will also have visibility of how many playbooks are there, who has executed, whether the playbooks have been successfully run or not. Because just having a script doesn't matter that things will be done properly, right? We need to have a checkpoint to understand whether things have been executed the way that we expected. So we need visibility, we need a logging also to ensure that who has been doing what, because that's what is very important in a scaled or distributed data center where big teams do a lot of things, where things might go unnoticed if it's not being monitored, right? And with that, you will be able to automate, like in infrastructure, let it be a Linux, and we support 150 plus types of operating systems, right? And a few are here, like including Windows, VMware, and these are the details. And along that, you will be able to manage the network components and then integrate with the security modules to carry out certain activities as needed. Okay. And besides this, we also have SaaS-based solutions, which allows you to interact with your public cloud services, which will allow you to have an analytics which shows in a graph manner what are the playbooks being executed and who are the users accessing it and what are the actions being carried out. And also, if you are in a big organization, you would also be able to see the statistics of the playbook has been distributed across your environment. So you get a better visibility and control what's happening in your infrastructure. So these are some of the technologies that would be able to interact and automate. And there are some plugins and modules are available for these. And these are some just selected names that I'm showing here. And now you may be asking, hey, Jafar, where can I apply this, right? What are the benefits that I'll get by using this tool? So these are the few use cases. They're a long list, but I just chose some to display here. And the top 5 or 10 use cases, usually they start with patch management, configuration management, and integrating with your ITSM, and especially these days with the cloud native applications and using a CI/CD processes, our tools will be able to interact. I'll show you an example how it adds value to that, the team using our tools, right? So this is example on a patch, right? So this is the code it looks like. So as you can see here, we start with the name, which is a tag. The purpose of this playbook, the purpose is removing the EC2 instance from the Elastic Load Balancer. That's the purpose, right? So, and then as you can see, it goes in the flow like a region, and then where the availability, what you have to do with which instance. So it's easily readable. It's really understandable what this playbook is supposed to do. Even a person with less scripting knowledge would be able to develop and read and manage it going forward. The next use case is more on in the CI/CD process. If you see, this is a typical process of any application development, right? So you plan it, and then you code, and then you build, and then you integrate with your CI/CD process, and then you test it, deploy, and run. But if you see here, there are some activities which, there are a lot of activities done across the team, which starts from a product owner to a developer to a testing team to the release manager. However, if we are to introduce a way of doing some, the repeated activities which can be automated, it will reduce the time taken to rebuild that, for example, a package or VM with a particular stage of that application's stage as of yesterday. So certain things can be automated, which can improve, which allows you to improve the time which it takes to finish the product. And also you can introduce some check mechanism in between the stages. For example, before I go to the UAT, during the test, you can implement an automation script. If this criteria is not met during the test, send this feedback back to the developer or the coding stage. So these are the things that it can be done, right? And even before going to the production, you want to send an email to the product manager, or even if that product belongs to an HR, if you want to inform a HR, all these things can be done using the automated script, right? And also you can use this to introduce a security mechanism in place. For example, if you're pulling an image from your repository, you need to make a check whether that image has been scanned for any latest CVEs. And if not, send it back. Don't push to the dev environment. So these are some of the examples that you can introduce in your CI/CD processes. So that's what this is one of our customer based in France that their use cases is to install the Journey and Elasticsearch, which they saw the benefit is like simplicity and agility, and they are able to run this on locally. The use cases is that they have two different teams, like operations and applications, right? So they wanted to ensure that a certain permissions, certain privileges are given to only to that operations team, rather they have less control over the coding. Whereas at the same time, for the developers, they would be able to interact with the Jenkins or the other needed API in order to make their functions, in order to operate properly. So this is what it will happen, right? So if there is another testing to happen, and after the test has been successfully conducted, and before it could be released, it uses an API to talk to the Ansible tower for the next action item, whether you want me to provision that package or you want me to deploy the package. So based on the steps that application is, that even the developers, they can decide what are the next action they would like to carry on. Right? So with this automated process on each stages, they were able to reduce a lot of time and minimize the mandates and were able to, able to release their projects sooner than what they usually used to do without those automated tools in place. And this is one of the examples for Windows environment, where you would be able to control what are the steps you needed to block any anonymous user logging into any sessions, right? Sometimes in the Windows operating system, sometimes some accesses are given by default, but you might like to stop it, because if you have to harden the operating systems, sometimes it's a painstaking process, and you can introduce all this check mechanism in place by having a playbook. Again, as I mentioned earlier, today we have a lot of components. Let it be, I mean, if you're a cloud native application, if you're looking for a cloud native application, it has to interact with a lot of components, let it be on premises or on the public cloud. And also that it has to interact with a lot of devices, components, and vendors and services, right? So Ansible Tower will help you to really integrate with all these different components in order to keep your IT operations simplified, because we might not have, I mean, as a single person, as a network administrator, he might not have expertise on different vendor products. But at the same time, since we are living in a multi-cloud or multi-operating system environment, again, we might not have all the bells and whistles to handle those particular operating systems. So that's where with the relevant APIs, with the relevant login mechanism, you will be able to handle and execute a playbook in a wider environment. So with that, now when we go back, let me go back to where we started. So this is an ITSM, which I showed earlier. a lot of things were done manually, right? So with this Red Hat Ansible Tower, you would be able to automate a lot of processes, which will minimize your time and also will keep your operations simplified and more under control and consistency, right? For example, if you have to have a disaster recovery process, you can automate and you can include what are the steps needed in your disaster recovery process, like provisioning. If it's already provisioned, what are the operating systems? If it's operating system there, what are the patches? And then what are the applications needs to be installed in a sequential manner, and which services needs to be started first. So all these things can be automated, which will simplify your IT operations on a day-to-day manner. All right, let me do a quick time check here. Time check. Yep. So these are some numbers. I'll just let you read on this. This is the benefits that our customers have shared with us based on their use of Ansible Tower. But this might vary depending from customer to customer based on their environment, based on the lot of data that to be inputted. But we'll be very happy to talk to you in details, and our partner teams will be able to interact with you in detailed conversation if you need more specific numbers as per your environment. These are some customers on a different industry who have been globally been using our solutions. And yeah. So with previously we discussed about a multi-infrastructure environment where there are different types of operating systems. So let me spare a few minutes to discuss more on how can enterprise Linux customer benefit with the tools which comes with enterprise Linux. So as you know, enterprise Linux, I mean, it has this built-in security mechanism, which is a core for any application development or infrastructure management, so that you're building your building blocks on top of a standardized operating system, so that you have less issues to handle as you go ahead. So yeah, I think timer is hard. Okay, so Insight is a tool which is provided as part of your enterprise Linux, which allows you to improve your operational confidence, continuously managing vulnerabilities risk. And these are some of the benefits, the services that you will get along with it, right? For example, you get an availability, performance, scalability analysis provided to you, and then you would be able to view what's happening in your environment, in your Red Hat Enterprise Linux environment. What is the inventory? What is the performance? What are the risks? What are the challenges you're facing? And now, if you want to do it manually, it might take some time, right? So that's where, with integrating Insights with Ansible, you would be able to remediate, you will be able to take the actions on the remediations based on the alerts, based on the issues, based on the vulnerabilities, based on the risk being highlighted by Insight as a tool, right? And this will be my last slide. So just to summarize here, we use Red Hat Satellites provides you the predictive analytics, which helps you to identify your current and potential problems based on your historical usage of your infrastructure. However, Satellite, it allows you to govern your deployment in a wider deployment area, not just in your data center. If you're using RHEL on public cloud, or public cloud, Satellite would be able to interact with those environments so that you have a standard operating and system environment in a consistently manner. And with integrating with Ansible, Insights will be able to generate, not only generate the playbook, and it will also allows you to take the remediation actions to fix those issues being raised by Insights. And then Tower allows you to execute those playbooks or remediate those actions in a wider scaled environment, which can be in on-premises or on the hybrid cloud. So there are two scenarios here, right? One is for Red Hat specific infrastructure. This might be your go-to-go high-level architecture or scenarios to consider. If it's a multi-operating system environment, which I discussed earlier, that will help you to simplify your IT operations in a holistic view. So with that, there are some next steps that you can start with. So these are the links. I think the decks will be shared. You'll be able to go through these links on understanding better. And also I have shared some links where you'll be able to download some examples of the playbooks. So you can start playing around, starting from a small script, how to open the CLI to a network device, how to do a patch management. And if any questions, I will take it in the Q&A session to answer any questions. With that, thank you.
Thank you for that insightful session, Jafar. I'm sure there are some of you who have questions right now. You can maximize the chat here at the Zoom platform so that our speakers can answer them later at the question and answer portion.
Okay.
Again, we are asking a few minutes of your time to answer our short survey wherein you can get a token as a gift. For our next session, our next speaker worked as a DevOps engineering consultant. He worked with the large enterprise customers to build and deploy web applications. Before joining GitLab, he also rolled out digital workflow transformations to help bring the modern DevOps practices to more companies. Let us welcome Robert Williams, Customer Success Solution Architect at GitLab.
Hi, yeah, thanks for that intro, Micah, and thanks, Andre, for that intro earlier. I just wanted to talk a little bit on that. Like as you said, Andre, the working from home is definitely a way of life for us here at GitLab, and it actually has been since the company started, to the point where we've actually written the book on it. And I like that you mentioned remote working culture, because the sort of the change from office to home has definitely made the ability to collaborate effectively and automate functionality more valuable. And both of those things that are more valuable now can be driven through GitOps, which is it's what I'm here to talk to you about: infrastructure automation, and specifically the concept of GitOps. But before we get into that, I think it's really important to understand how the concepts of GitOps have evolved and how they tie in with the software development lifecycle. So as an introduction to GitOps, I really want to talk about software development methodology that can be used by your development teams, because it really does play a large role in your infrastructure and how your operations team can deliver value by integrating with the modern software factory. Software development is sped up. Developers are moving with agility to deliver software, and this concept has really been summed up very well for me by this quote that I've got on screen from the founder of Netscape. He said, "Cycle time compression may be the most underestimated force in determining winners and losers in tech." And this is because each iteration gives you the opportunity to deliver real value to your customers. When you're off track, you learn about it quickly before your team makes significant effort towards the incorrect goal. And this really becomes important when you consider that competitiveness really depends on how fast teams can deliver code, which is to say how fast we can create customer value. Software is accelerating the rate of innovation across all industries, increasing competitiveness and allowing competitors to emerge even faster. To compensate for this, product development teams have been adopting new methodologies in order to help them iterate faster. So when we started developing software, we saw it a lot like the hardware deployments that we were doing at the same time. We saw a lot of design and requirements being done up front and had long sequential cycles where ideas can start to become outdated even before they're implemented. In order to enable a digital transformation, the software development community developed the Agile methodology. And we've really seen it come along and say that software can be developed in smaller, more frequent changes, more frequent iterations, allowing us to iterate quickly, developing a really adaptive solution, which is the biggest goal. And now that we've got all these smaller changes that the software developers can produce, the operations team needs to move faster as well. And in order to enable that, the silos between those two teams need to be broken down. And growing out of the Agile movement, we really see this DevOps as a concept, And DevOps really emphasizes the need to consider not only the code, but the delivered service that your customers are actually going to be using. We need to start thinking about hardware like we've started to think about our software, having the ability to leverage small changes in an automated fashion to deliver value. And when companies really start to embrace this, this is when we see companies go cloud native, when your development and operations team can work together to make small changes to dynamically provision infrastructure when required and automatically test and deploy changes. The ability to test and deploy changes allows us to see exponential increases in the amount of change that, that teams can implement. So as a way of a summary of what we've just seen, so we started out at waterfall was the standard, and especially in infrastructure, we see this methodology still used today. Lots of sequential steps, lots of documentation, and really long cycles. Next up was agile, smaller and smaller changes with faster iteration, but that led to other issues. Developers going really fast and the operations and infrastructure teams not being able to keep up. When DevOps came along, we broke down the walls between those two teams, enabling a great step forward in collaboration, automation, stability, and acceleration. Now that we're seeing a lot of cloud native technologies emerge, we see containerization, microservices, and Kubernetes. These technologies really break down your applications, your infrastructure, and your source code and componentize them, adding complexity to the way that you have to design your application, your infrastructure, but enabling smaller, faster, and more isolated changes. And this is where GitOps really starts to deliver value in enabling the change in how infrastructure is really delivered. So before we get into what GitOps is and how we use it, I just want to discuss the adoption of GitOps. So not everyone has adopted this new methodology, and recently, so the end of June, we submitted this poll on Twitter to see how the people who are most keen with GitLab, see if they're using GitOps yet. And of the 400 responses, around 54% of them aren't currently using GitOps. But there is a large portion of that that is very interested in moving forward. And we've found that these numbers are pretty representative, and especially for me, in my experience in Asia Pacific region, there's not a whole lot. There's about 50% of customers aren't even aware of GitOps as a concept yet. And what that really shows to me is that there's lots of room for teams to leverage GitOps to create more flexible and dynamic environments. And so with that, I want to talk about GitOps. And there's really two concepts that I want to cover here, the what and the how of GitOps. So to start with, what is GitOps? Just like many tech terms, GitOps has lots of different definitions. Let's begin with a level playing field, and we'll see how GitLab defines GitOps. So an operational framework which incorporates DevOps best practices which are used in application development, and they're applying those to infrastructure automation. So all of that really is just a big fancy way of saying it's DevOps for infrastructure, bringing this concept of automation into the operations team and allowing them to collaborate and work together with the applications team to build, test, and deliver changes faster, thereby compressing the cycle time. So there are three main components of DevOps that, when adapted into GitOps, provides a bit of a structural framework for how to deliver infrastructure inside this modern software factory. And those three pillars are IAC, infrastructure as code, where you declare what is needed in your code. Merge requests, so these are the change agents and the audit trail, what changed, when, where. And CI/CD, and this is the automation, the reconciliation loop that ensures the infrastructure is up to date. So when we look at infrastructure as code, we really need to go far beyond just your infrastructure. You need to look at everything else that goes along with it, because just to you need to be able to implement your configuration, your policies, as well as any other of your operations tasks, your monitoring, etc., as code. And by leveraging the declarative nature of code, you can define the desired state of your infrastructure and then store it in Git to gain the advantages of version control. So things like being able to see your history of your changes, localized testing, branching, and the ability to create extensively tested and utilized tooling as the development team to manage all of your operations. The next advantage that being inside that version control gives you is really the second pillar of GitOps. This is the ability to create merge requests. So merge requests, really, as I was saying before, are the change agents for your code updates. They allow you to merge branches back into master, which then becomes the source of truth for your master environment. It allows you to review changes to that truth whenever it's needed, have discussions with your team about changes, commenting directly on code changes, which relate directly to your infrastructure, your configuration, your policies within any given environment. Merge requests really, they act as a bit of a gate on change, if you will. They enable a small number of people to control how the deployment, the enacting of the change, while promoting collaboration with a wider group. A bit like a funnel, right? Where you've got a wide brim at the top, allowing lots of people to collaborate together and work together on the code base, and then controlling who has the final say so that you can control exactly what gets put in. This is very similar to how software developers, software releases are done. And it's part of GitOps, right? Is adapting that into the hardware releases. Another tool that often gets integrated with the version control by the software developers is CI/CD, or continuous integration, continuous deployment. And what CI/CD does for operations teams is it creates an automated reconciliation loop. And what that really means is that with every change that gets made, it automatically gets reconciled with the truth of the current state of the deployed infrastructure. So with every change, pipelines get run and they allow you to execute testing, validation, planning, and even the creation of dynamic environments to test end state and to test the code that you produced from the user perspective. It allows you to do all of that from the specific branches that you're running on, so that new environments can be made as branches get made when required, or you can even restrict that so that it only validates the code and doesn't spin up dynamic environments if not needed. This flexibility really allows you to integrate your operations managed environments with applications. And those dynamic environments that I mentioned earlier, the ability to spin up and spin down goes beyond just testing your infrastructure. It allows you to test applications and deploy dynamic environments with the specific needs of that application loaded in and enable the developers to see what the end state will look like and test the workflows in a live environment. When building the integration between your application platform and your CI/CD tool, you can utilize either a push or a pull-based update for your infrastructure. So you can have an agent inside your cluster pulling out of the approved code, or you can use your CI/CD to push updates back up. The CI/CD really removes the need for your infrastructure to be manually managed and deployed. So in order to integrate these concepts into your operations workflow, you need to adapt the working principles of software development into a GitOps flow. And when you manage your infrastructure, you'll have an environment branch. So in this diagram, we've got the main branch. That's typically the production environment. And when you need to change that infrastructure, you can create an issue where you can describe and document the change, what's needed from the change, and why it's needed. From there, create a merge request, enabling your team to collaborate, documenting the audit trail, what changed, testing pipelines, creating dynamic environments, creating and destroying test environments, and enabling developers and operators to see exactly what that end state is going to look like. Allowing your teams to collaborate, peer review, discuss, and approve the changes together. After you pass that review gate, you merge the branch into your feature branch back into your main branch, and you move into BAU. You monitor your changes and you see if anything's come up, and then you can go back to the beginning. You start again and enact this workflow again. The continuous nature of this testing and deployment of infrastructure and application changes really allows for teams to see the effective changes quickly, allowing for changes to be deployed without downtime and enabling choices as to how you roll out your changes, utilizing ideas like canary deployments and feature flags to incrementally deploy new features on new applications because it's all templated as part of your GitOps workflow. And really, now we've started to stray into how we do GitOps, so I'm just going to show our banner slide to remind us where we're up to. And I want to start talking about the tooling, because that's really the first thing that comes up when I see that workflow, right? Is that there's lots of different steps. There's lots of stages in the software development lifecycle. And really at each one, you need tooling to enable your team to work collaboratively. And by utilizing a single platform for each tools, it creates a single pane of glass for developers, operators, and security teams to all work on together, a single language for them all to work on. because that's what, like, tooling is really the glue that binds the teams together. So by having this single platform for your Git, your CI/CD, your container registry, together with the technology to manage and execute your infrastructure as code technologies, it allows for a seamless experience without handoffs and context switching between applications for each different stage of the software development lifecycle. And if we take that GitOps workflow that we saw earlier and put it into action, this is what we can sort of create. This is just one of the sort of ideas of it. And it gives a good idea of how GitLab fits into the picture of your application development. You have your single, transparent, unifying tool for creating and delivering applications and the platform that they run on, to create a software factory which observes and defines the different adaptations that can be built and deployed automatically. So you can configure dynamic, scalable environments which incorporate your team's needs and allow for collaborations between developers and operators, enabling the ability to implement changes based on real-world feedback. And so although infrastructure as code is a large part of how you leverage this workflow, it's basically the part on that left. You've got the deployment, the configuration, all in this infrastructure as code, your CI/CD. It's a big part of the GitOps workflow. There are some parts that of the operations that can't be done as part of Git. However, GitLab integrates very tightly with some of the application platforms, Kubernetes especially. And by utilizing the managed applications, GitLab can continuously deploy applications, enable feature flags, certificate management, application monitoring, security testing, integrated environment management, and dynamic environments, all in the same interface as your version control, merge requests, and other collaboration points. So I'm going to quickly touch on some of the most popular applications that GitLab integrates in. So to start with, we have Prometheus. This is an open source systems monitoring tool and alerting toolkit that was originally built by SoundCloud. It's been adapted by many companies, however, and has a very active user community. It's actually been hosted now by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation and is the second hosted project behind Kubernetes itself. And by utilizing this Prometheus as a GitLab managed app and the GitLab Auto DevOps application deployment, metrics for every environment get brought back into GitLab to be displayed alongside your source code, allowing you to see how your different applications are being affected by their load at the moment. After you have your metrics, the next thing that you're going to be looking for is your logs from all your different environments, because logs are really a universal tool. Your operators, your developers use them extensively to diagnose, find, and fix errors in the platform, as well as any applications deployed on the platform. And so GitLab implements Elasticsearch to collect, sort, and display the context for all the pods in your Kubernetes cluster for each application. Again, grouping those logs back alongside the code so that you can maintain that context between your environments and the applications. Now that you've got your logs, the next thing that we looked at was really the tracing. And for that, GitLab is starting to integrate with Jaeger, the distributed tracking system that was developed by Uber. Again, another one of these projects that's been accepted into the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, Kubernetes and Prometheus being the other two ones that we've discussed so far. And Jaeger really is it's used for monitoring and troubleshooting your microservices-based distributed networks. As far as managed apps go, Jaeger is still in the early stages for GitLab, but after a manual setup, you can integrate directly with the GitLab UI to bring the information that Jaeger generates back into the user interface and maintain that context that we've been talking about. And this really allows your teams to perform your root cause analysis, distributed transaction monitoring, and latency optimization. So the last sort of piece of the puzzle here is error tracking. So GitLab has a tight integration with Sentry, another open source project, but this one not an open source project actually. I've misspoken. But Sentry aggregates errors found in deployed environments and services them in the GitLab UI, providing tools to triage and respond to any critical issues. And GitLab really leverages Sentry's intelligence to provide pertinent information such as the user impact or even the commit that caused the bug. Throughout the triage process, users have the option to create GitLab issues to enable collaboration and merge requests to fix those issues, all without leaving GitLab. So bring all of this again into the context of making the changes to fix the issues at the same time as detecting them. So when you start to process these alerts during a firefight, you often have to coordinate across multiple different tools to evaluate different data sources. And it ends up being time consuming because each time a responder switches to a new tool, they get confronted with a new interface, different interactions, which is often disorienting, slows down collaboration, slows down investigation, and really slows down the sharing of findings with your teammates. By creating actionable alerts and incidents, you can accelerate that firefight and the knowledge sharing that goes along with it to minimize the number of tools that you need to check before finding the problem. The reality is, though, that despite all of this and despite all of your teams adopting the sort of DevOps, GitOps workflow, the tools, the process, and the culture, we often see teams optimizing locally, but still working sequentially, handing work off from one team to another, from your development team to your security team to your operations team. And this really limits the organizations from really realizing the value of GitOps, where teams can work together to have a single conversation around the smaller deliverables. And so to enable that, we really need to work together at the same time and collaborate on a single pane of glass to build, test, deliver, and monitor code changes, working concurrently rather than sequentially on any given product or service that's going to be delivered to a customer. And there's lots of different roles here. Full stack developers are responsible for your front and back end code. You have operators needing to deploy and monitor changes. You have designers needing to collaborate on designs. Product managers need to be able to view the progress of your iterations. All of these people work together collaboratively to create software. And therefore they need access to a full stack of tools in a single application, providing a better user experience with unified permissions. And that's really what GitLab drives, GitLab delivers. In order to drive these radically faster cycle times by enabling DevOps teams to utilize GitOps and the single platform to achieve higher levels of efficiency across every single stage of the DevOps lifecycle. Concurrent DevOps makes it possible for product development, quality assurance, security, and operations teams to all work together rather than waiting for handoffs. And teams can work concurrently to sort of review changes together before pushing into production. Everyone's contributing to a single conversation across every stage and eliminating the need to manually configure and integrate multiple tools for each project. And really enabling teams to start immediately working concurrently to radically compress their cycle time. There's never really any need to wait on synchronizing monitoring apps to version control or copying information between tools. GitLab really frees the teams to manage the projects rather than the tools and eliminate guesswork, drive accountability, and give everyone the data-driven confidence to act with a new certainty. And GitOps is really the backside of this figure of 8 here. And by integrating GitOps into the operations workflow, you bring the operations team into the same tooling and workflow as the software developers and the product managers and the UX designers and all the personas that we've been talking about, allowing teams to get better every day by having the visibility to see progress and operate better with a deeper understanding of the cycle times across all your projects and activities. Okay, that's all I had to sort of share with you guys. Thank you very much. I'm gonna stop sharing now.
Thank you so much, Robert. We have picked up a lot of ideas that are relevant to your talk. So before we move on to our question and answer session, you can send in your questions at the chat box here so we can have our speakers directly respond to your queries. Also, do not forget to answer our survey. You can access it through the QR code on your screen or by typing in the link bit.ly/redhat-webinar that will lead you to the survey platform. We will be sending a token for those who will answer the survey. You can also check the chat box wherein you can access the survey link. Let's proceed to our question and answer session. Let me call on Sir Ryan to facilitate this one. Okay. So I think we have received a few questions here. This one is addressed to Jafar. How can we use Red Hat Insights for on-premise servers that might be airtight or isolated, for example, in banking industries?
Sorry, come again. How can we?
Okay. So
Sorry.
how can we use Red Hat Insights for on-premise servers that might be airtight or isolated? For example, in banking industries.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Because Insight is it talks to the cloud. So in this case, we can have update to pulled in a server or in a desktop which sits within the DMZ zone, and then that asks that server to push the update to the servers which are sitting inside the locked-in infrastructure. So there are ways that we can configure the gateway to interact in this closed loop environment.
Okay, thank you for that, Jafar. We have another question here for Robert. Can we deploy GitLab on a local premise?
Yeah, definitely. So GitLab has two different offerings. So software as a service, which GitLab.com. There is actually an on-premise version of GitLab that you can get for the same price that we offer, and has the same tiers as GitLab.com. So all that same functionality is available on premise. Yep.
Okay, so we have additional 3 questions here. So this one is for Jafar again. Does Red Hat provide Ansible playbook development, or it's through partners?
Yeah. So if you look into Ansible engine itself, it's a community powered, I would say community powered software, right? But when we talk about Ansible, Red Hat Ansible platform, which is all packaged and managed by Red Hat itself. So if you're using or planning to use Red Hat Ansible as a subscription, this will fall under the complete support under Red Hat, including any changes or any patches which will be releasing on a regularly basis, so that it'll take away your pain points of looking into the community for any changes that they have been releasing on a weekly or monthly basis. So in this case, if Red Hat becomes your primary point of contact.
Okay, so another questions for you, Jafar. How do we make sure and secure automated tasks will not harm existing infrastructure?
Yeah. So a playbook is a sequential of scripts. So when we are writing a playbook or creating a playbook, the recommended recommendation would be to test within your environment before you put it in a production. That sequence is what that you needed before it's been released or implemented widely in your organization. Yeah, because playbook can't we need to check this to put it in a plain way. We need to test the steps before we go into wider adoption or production.
Okay, so for the last question here in our chat box, this is for Rob. How secure is GitLab SCM to store authentication credentials? What would be the recommendations?
So for application credentials, you can store them privately in the as project variables within GitLab. The GitLab.com is reasonably secure. I'm not 100% familiar on the GitLab.com security functionality there, But on-prem, that goes back to how secure your on-prem system is, right? The other way to do it is we do have a tight integration with HashiCorp Vault. So you can pull your secrets directly into CI/CD pipelines to deploy applications and yeah, use them as environment variables within the runner instances.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that's our last question in our chat box. Anyone here that has a question, you can unmute your mic. Yeah, last call for any questions. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you for all your questions and for the informative answers from our speakers. If you want a deep dive session regarding Red Hat and GitLab, we will be reaching out to you via the information that you have given upon registering in this webinar. You can also visit us in our social media pages and our website at www.itgroupinc.asia or send us an email at info@itgroupinc.asia. So for the last part, may I call on Andre for our closing remarks.
Hi, Mika. Hi, everyone. This is Ryan, and I'm the Regional Technology Manager for IT Group Inc. Um, First of all, I would like to thank you, to say thank you for everyone who have attended this webinar. And I thank the speaker as well for sharing the time and sharing their knowledge to all of us. Please continue to follow us through the social media platform that we have and through um, our webpage as well. Um, we will have more of this webinar. This is a series, and we will continue to work with partners to make sure that we are ready for the next phase or to the new normal that we will have. Thank you everyone for attending and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you, Sir Ryan, for wrapping up this webinar. It was a pleasure to have you with us today, and we look forward to seeing all of you again soon. We would also like to thank our co-hosts for this event, Red Hat and GitLab. Thank you, everyone, and may you have an awesome weekend ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.